Hey love, I'm Gina, a fitness, nutrition, and self-love coach, helping high-achieving women heal their relationship with food and their bodies so they can finally feel free, strong, and confident in their own skin. If you've ever felt stuck in the cycle of restriction, binging, and body shame, trust me, you are not alone. On this podcast, we're calling out diet culture BS, building your dream body without the obsession, and getting real about what it actually means to love yourself in a world that constantly tells you not to. I've been there. Anorexia, binge eating, body hate, you name it, I've lived it. And now I help women just like you find food freedom, feel sexy in their skin, and take their damn power back. So get ready, because the Fit Without Obsession podcast starts now. Hey guys, today we're gonna go into a topic that is not talked about enough. There are a million posts out there and podcasts telling you what recovery should look like, which might look like eating more, resting, ditching the scale, loving yourself. All of these amazing, beautiful things are preached and shown online. But honestly, the thing is that's only half the story, because recovery is actually very messy. It's very quiet. It's really uncomfortable. There's a lot that isn't shown online or just talked about enough. So today I really want to dive into moments in my recovery that almost broke me, and ones that also saved me, and kind of just normalize a lot of the feelings that you might be feeling if you're going on your own recovery journey, because I know that sometimes healing feels wrong. You've probably wondered, why does this feel so lonely? Why does this feel so emotional or so weird to actually get better and to actually feel good in our skin? Because when we think about the end trajectory, when we think about the end goal, when we think about food freedom and feeling body confident and loving ourselves, that all sounds amazing, like rainbows and butterflies, right? And it does feel like that. But the process of getting from point A, where you are right now, hating yourself, hating food, hating your body, to point B has a lot of messiness in the middle. So today I am going to dive into sharing the truths I wish someone had told me when I was deep in my recovery journey, and just really the side of recovery that no one talks about, but really absolutely needs to be talked about. The first thing that I want to dive into is that it doesn't feel like healing at first when you're in a recovery journey. The early days of the recovery journey don't feel freeing at all. They actually feel fucking terrifying. And really, that fear starts for you probably, and where it started for me, it was that fear of starting to eat more or stop over exercising or wearing clothes that fit in a bigger body. And it's not because I didn't want healing, or maybe not because you don't want healing, but because your old life was built around being small. So for me, when I first started my recovery journey, I really was excited to challenge myself with fear foods and start eating cake and start eating French fries and all the things that I had told myself for so long that I couldn't have. It was this exciting moment of, wait, I can actually allow myself to have this. And that's a really cool thing. Like, I'm excited to dive in. But once I actually did that, once I actually ate the French fries and had to sit with that myself, because also too, recovery is going to be a little lonely. No one's going to be sitting there every single moment you eat something hard, like rooting for you and having big rounds of applause. Yes, you're going to have support systems, but at the same point, you have to find that support for yourself. So when I first ate this moment, when I started eating the fear foods, I felt disgusted and ashamed. I felt like crap about myself. I felt like I had just done everything wrong because I was unlearning so many of the rules that I had written out for myself before. So it did not feel amazing. It did not feel happy. It did not feel like this glowing movement of healing. It felt like shit. And I just want you to know that just because it feels uncomfortable, just because something is uncomfortable, doesn't mean that it's wrong. Because sometimes healing can feel like breaking at first. And honestly, I don't even want to say sometimes, it will feel like breaking at first. And I think once we can get to a place where we accept that and we can understand that that's the normal process, we aren't going to beat ourselves up as much when we feel uncomfortable in that moment. And another thing that I want to talk about that isn't talked about enough in the healing space is you might miss the person that you were in your disorder. Even when I was so tiny, like 90 pounds, anorexic, feeling like not physically able to even get up steps, I somehow still missed that version of me when I was going through my healing journey, because it was something that I had really made an identity around, and it's something that I had really built my daily life structure around. I had all these rules, I had all this precision, I had everything lined up for me. So when I turn into this new healed person or healing person, this new version of myself, I did kind of miss that version of myself, and not the negative parts, right? But I did have to grieve the version of me that was so disciplined. Even though that version of me was hurting me, like I felt safe and I felt powerful. I felt like, I have this huge self-discipline. I could say no to foods. I can make myself work out. I can push through this hunger. Like I'm so disciplined. And when I had to rid myself of that, I felt less powerful. I felt like I didn't have that control that I once had. So you don't miss the suffering, but you might miss the sense of control, the discipline, the body, or the praise or identity it gave you. So I know that can sound really confusing, and it is going to feel confusing if you're going through that process. Something can hurt you and you could still miss it. It doesn't mean that you want to go back. It just means that you're human. So I'm not saying that desire, that kind of gap that I felt in my life when I was thinking about my old self, that I wanted to go back to her. I never did. Once I started my healing journey, I was fully forward. And I'm not going to say there wasn't hiccups along the way. Obviously there were, and we can't ever expect that a healing journey is going to be this perfect trajectory, but I still missed her, right? And I think, one thing that we can even think about is maybe an old relationship you had. When you first maybe end that relationship, even if it's something that is toxic, even if it's something that you shouldn't have or be involved in, you're still going to miss it because you spent a lot of time with that person, right? And you made a lot of memories, and a lot of the times we can remember the good, and then we think, oh, well, all those good things happened. Why didn't I go back? And we forget sometimes to think of the bad. So it's almost the same thing when we're going through our healing journey with ourselves. We have to continuously remind ourselves of the bad so that we can understand, okay, wait, that good was definitely not freaking worth it whatsoever. And, letting go of control can feel like losing yourself. For me, I know that when I went through my healing journey, that meant more free time. And I hated it because, when your whole life is revolving around a routine where you're tracking, you're working out, you're planning meals, you're thinking about food 24/7, you're constantly picking your body apart in the mirror, you have these routines in place. Once you stop, you're like, wait, who am I without this stuff? What do I do? What do I actually do with my free time? If I take a full rest day, what do I do with my morning? And you actually then have to investigate how to fill that time and space. And that could be a very scary thing when you haven't had that option before. And especially too, when you're still having these uncomfortable feelings about yourself and food. You don't have all those distractions in place anymore. So it turns out for me, food rules weren't just habits. They were the only thing giving me a false sense of identity. And I thought I had discipline, but what I had was actually just fear. And it was really just disguised as control. So again, once I had more of that free time, I was kind of meant to face my fear. And that was scary. I didn't want to do that. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. That actually is the beautiful part of healing, is we start facing the things that we need to face. And I say need, literally not want. We don't want to, but we need to in order to move forward. And another thing that isn't talked enough about in your healing journey is that food freedom doesn't mean that you're not going to have any food fear. Let's just write that out right now. You're going to still have food fear. You might even have it for years. I feel like even when we talk about my healing journey, it was years and years and years. Even though I continued to get more healed, I got more confident in my body, I got more comfortable with food, there were still little whisper moments of that food fear popping up for me. And this means that you're free even when the fear shows up. That's how we know that we find that food freedom, right? Because again, food freedom doesn't mean no food fear. It does mean that you're free to still choose yourself first, to not give into those disordered habits or behaviors anymore. I used to think that recovery meant I never think about food again, that I never feel anxious around pizza or vacations or hunger, and that was really not true at all. The real healing is not about never struggling. It's actually about learning to respond differently when you do struggle. So the thoughts you might have come up, but you don't obey them anymore when you're in this healing process, right? So you might think oh my gosh, I'm so fat for eating these French fries. Oh my gosh, I should go to the gym tomorrow because I ate too much. But the thing is, when we're in this healing process, we don't act on those thoughts. We push them away. We see them for what they are. They're thoughts, because really, thoughts have no meaning to us unless we tie emotion to them, unless we tie action to them. We can have thoughts and choose not to see them or listen to them. Just like when you hear about mindfulness practice, it's okay to have different thoughts pop up. I want you to also give yourself grace of it's okay if you have these thoughts pop up, but we need to let them pass, right? We don't want to stay presently involved with them. So for you, in your healing journey, this might look like eating ice cream even when you have anxiety about it, or wearing shorts even though your brain is literally screaming like, oh my God, don't wear those, people are going to judge you, or even choosing rest when your worth feels tangled up in productivity. Those are all good, amazing examples that you are still healing even though it doesn't feel perfect and amazing in that moment. Healing isn't about erasing that fear, it's about reclaiming your power in the face of it. And now this is probably one of the hardest things that I had to face during my recovery journey, is that recovery exposes the stuff that you were using food to avoid. So we talked about in previous episodes, like, you're gaining something from this horrible relationship with food, right? I know that it doesn't seem like that when you're feeling so miserable, when you're feeling so over it and you want to be past it, but you are gaining something. So for me, once I stopped restricting my intake and putting all these obsessive rules around food, I had to face the stuff I'd buried. And there was a lot of painful things that really came up for me. And I could have ran away in fear if I hadn't welcomed this. But I knew that, again, I needed to face these things in order to be the healed, amazing, beautiful version of myself I wanted to become. So binging, obsessing, restricting, they might all be keeping your mind busy. So for me, like, when that stuff went away, the real stuff came up, like anxiety, body shame, the perfectionism, the unworthiness. I really didn't realize how wrapped up I was in the thought that I was not worthy until I started healing my relationship with food. And I'll see clients do this all the time when they're going through their healing process. It's almost, we have to go through this cathartic moment of like, wow, like, once I get rid of this hold that food has, I actually see that there's a lot of other things in my life I'm upset about, I'm unhappy with. So I've had clients go through their own healing journeys and leave long-term relationships. They've changed jobs. And not that, we want to feel like we have to give up a whole bunch of things that are going on in our life. But what I want to tell you through their experiences is they realized once they were getting in a better place with food, they saw the other things that they were putting up with that were not serving them, that were not actually things that they deserved to have in their life. They deserved more. They deserved better, right? They deserved more for themselves. And I remember, for me, I was one time in a dressing room and I literally was crying and bawling my eyes out. And it wasn't because I ate something different. It wasn't because my body looked a certain way. I just remember that moment I was finally the face to look myself in the eye, and I couldn't hide behind anything anymore. I really saw myself and saw all the things in my life that I really wanted to fix and change that I didn't have the time or energy to before when I was relying on food to fill that void. Food was never the problem for me, and really isn't for you, even though it feels like it, right? But it's really a distraction from the problem, from the real issues. Another thing that isn't talked about enough is that recovery will change your relationships. And it could be good and bad. I'm not saying in a bad way. You could actually, again, like I said, one of my clients got out of a really rough relationship and now is putting herself first and dating and happy and feeling free and so much more just herself and in love with herself. But, no one warns you when you change that your relationships shift too. Because your friends might not get it. They might not understand what you're going through in this healing journey that you're on. But also one thing that I really think is important to talk about is people around you are not going to stop talking about diets or bodies. Just because you might be feeling more body confident and you don't want to have these triggers around you, you can try to remove triggers as much as you want and not follow accounts that are going to trigger you. You can try to welcome body positive talk, all the things, but there's going to be people around you that are still let's say you go to family dinner and your aunt is still on this extreme keto diet, or for me, I know I was I still go to dance, right? I'm still a dancer. There are still other dancers that will comment around how fat they feel or how fat they look in the mirror. The thing is, we have to understand that those things are going to come up, and when we're aware of it, when we know that we're not going to let those things eat into our old version of ourselves that wanted to succumb to those thoughts, that wanted to be run by those thoughts, once we can work past that and we can expect them, then we can move forward. And also, some of your relationships might feel less safe and others might become more sacred. You might really lean into some different relationships, ones that better serve you and are more aligned with the healing version of yourself that you are becoming. Sometimes you can lose the common ground you had when you were deep in food obsession, and that grief is real. Especially if you and a friend have dieted together your whole life, that may be hard if you decide to heal and they don't. You might lose that common ground, but It's not enough to hold you back, right? You deserve so much better. And maybe you'll even inspire them to want to go on their own healing journey. And you gain so much more though. So even though your relationships might be shifting, you're going to gain authenticity. You're going to gain boundaries, space for real connection. I mean, I can't tell you how little boundaries I had before I healed my relationship with food and my body. And I feel like that's been something that I really couldn't tap into until I was in a healed place. And I just feel so much calmer and safer and more true to myself having these boundaries in place and recognizing that it's actually healthy and okay to set boundaries and an amazing thing to do. I felt for a long time that made me a bad person, or people wouldn't like me, or I wouldn't be giving enough. And I really was just burning myself out all the time. And the last thing that I really want to wrap up with and tell you is that when you're going through this recovery journey, it's not going to feel like sunrise. It's going to feel like literally burning your life down. And I, again, want to talk about this stuff on this podcast, not to dissuade you from wanting to become recovered, because I'm going to continue to share literally throughout this podcast, throughout more episodes, throughout my own journey, how freaking incredible it is to be healed. And I would not change it for the world. I literally have the most beautiful life, the most just beautiful vision of myself, and all of these amazing goals for the future now because I went through recovery. But I do want to point out some of the negative things just because they're not talked about enough. And then when we can know to expect these things, we can work through them better. So I thought for recovery, one day I would just arrive and feel whole. And I would just all of a sudden be healed. It would feel like one morning it was going to happen and I wouldn't have to worry about any of my old triggers anymore. But the truth is, healing doesn't feel like becoming someone new. It feels like shedding every version of you that was built for survival. Like really, in a sense, we think we're becoming someone new because we're working towards this thing. We're working towards healing. We're working toward the future. So we think it's this new thing, but really in reality, it's really getting back to who you are. It's getting back to the root of who you are and the root of your soul. And maybe it feels like a new person. And maybe that's because you've never really had enough time and energy and space to connect that deeply to yourself. But you really are going to get back to your core person. Think about when you were a little kid and you were brought onto this earth, you're going to get back connected to her. And that's such a beautiful, exciting thing because healing is going to bring you home. This recovery journey is going to bring you home. You talk about the beautiful, messy, ongoing journey of choosing yourself again and again, even when it's hard, even when no one claps for you anymore. Because a lot of the times when you're first starting off your recovery journey, I'll tell you this from my experience, people will be very excited for you and they'll really uplift you. And I remember sharing my story for the first time on Instagram and I got a lot of love and praise, and not that that's why I shared it. I really just shared it because I wanted to speak my truth. But I will say that will dissipate some. As you continue to be on this healing recovery journey, that noise is going to quiet down. And that's when you have to continue to clap and cheer yourself on and know that that's enough. Because healing is not going to be linear. It's going to feel like a rebellion. And some days the bravest thing you can do is just eat a sandwich and just take a nap. That is a big moment in a recovery journey. It might look like you doing these huge things where you go on a whole vacation and you eat out with no guilt and it's this big, beautiful trip. But sometimes it's literally just one little choice. That one little choice when you feel like binging once you're stressed out from work, but you decide to go outside for a walk instead. That is what is going to really help you on recovery, is just recognizing that it's all these small things that really add up that's going to get you to where you want to be. And I just want you to know you're not doing recovery wrong because it feels hard. You're not broken because you missed the control. You're also not weak because you still hear the old thoughts. It just means you're healing. Again, you're in recovery. All these things that I shared in this podcast today are very normal. They're expected. So I don't want to say welcome them with happy open arms because I know it's not fun stuff, but understand that it's okay if these things come up. You're healing, and healing isn't pretty. It's raw, it's messy, it's real. But it will become the most honest, aligned, and soul deep thing you ever do. It's gonna be the best thing that's ever happened to you. And I promise it's so fucking worth it. Thank you so much for tuning into the Fit Without Obsession podcast. If this episode helped you heal, grow, or just feel a little less alone, go ahead and hit the follow button so that you never miss a moment of this journey. And if you loved it, share it on your stories and tag me at @thefitbean_. I seriously love seeing what resonates. Sharing this podcast helps more women step out of a session and into their power. And that ripple effect starts with you. And if you're ready for deeper support, check the show notes for ways that we can work together. Just remember, eat the pasta, wear the shorts, and love the hell out of your life. You deserve it always. Talk soon.